1, we've got a real gem to talk about. A 1977 Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme that's up for grabs on Craigslist for just $5,000. Now, I know what you might be thinking. A car that old? It must be a rusty old bucket. But hold your horses, because this Cutlass is anything but. First off, let's talk about the condition. The seller claims it's in excellent shape, and from the looks of it, they're not exaggerating. The glass is pristine, the chrome bumpers are shining like new, and the interior is in fantastic original condition. It's clear that the previous owner, an electrician, took great pride in maintaining this beauty. Now here's where things get really interesting. This particular model, the Cutlass Supreme Sedan, is incredibly rare. Less than 1% of them are still around, and finding one that's rust-free and running is like stumbling upon a leprechaun with a pot of gold. It's got the highly sought-after waterfall grille that was only produced in '76 and '77, making it even more special. Under the hood, you'll find a bulletproof 350 engine that churns out 170 horsepower, paired with a smooth, 3-speed turbo-hydromatic transmission. And unlike modern cars, you can actually work on this one yourself without needing a degree in computer science. The seller mentions that the car recently underwent a thorough inspection and received some new parts, including a battery, hoses, plugs, and more. They do note that the water pump bearings and high beam headlight could use some attention, but hey, no car is perfect, right? Now, I know some of you might be skeptical about the low mileage, but the seller seems confident that the 15,184 miles on the odometer could be the real deal. They've got receipts showing that the car has been driven less than 1,000 miles in the past 13 years, so it's not too far-fetched. In terms of aesthetics, this Cutlass is a real head-turner. The brown paint job might not be everyone's cup of tea, but it's original and in great condition. And let's be honest, when you're cruising down the street in this classic, you're bound to get plenty of admiring glances and compliments. So, what's the catch? Well, there isn't one, really. The seller is the executor of the previous owner's estate and wants to find a good home for this Cutlass, preferably with an enthusiast or collector who will appreciate it. They're even including a binder of service records and some extra OEM parts to sweeten the deal. In conclusion, if you're looking for a rare, well-maintained classic car that's sure to turn heads and start conversations, this 1977 Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme might just be the one for you. At $5,000, it's a steal compared to a similar model that recently sold for nearly 3 times that amount. So if you're in the Aberdeen, Washington area, go ahead and give the seller a call or shoot them a text. Just don't leave a voicemail. They're a traveling nurse and might not have time to check them. Happy bidding, and may the best enthusiast win. 2. We've got a real treat for you. A 1957 Dodge Royal that's up for grabs on Craigslist for just $10,750. And let me tell you, this beauty is giving off some serious Christine vibes, but without the whole possessed killer car thing. First things first, can we talk about that color combo? Tropical turquoise and tuxedo black. It's like this car is ready for a fancy night out on the town, and the best part? It's been lovingly cared for and garage kept by the same family since day one. That's right, this is a one-owner vehicle, folks. Now, I know what you might be thinking. A car that old must be a hassle to drive. But that's where you're wrong, my friend. This Dodge Royal runs and drives so well, you could make it your daily driver if you wanted to. Imagine rolling up to work or the grocery store in this classic beauty. You'd be the talk of the town. Under the hood, you'll find a powerful 8-cylinder engine that's ready to take you on all sorts of adventures. And with rear-wheel drive, you'll get to experience that classic American muscle car feel. Plus, with an automatic transmission, cruising around town will be a breeze. The seller mentions that this car is a rare find, and they're not kidding. 1957. Dodge Royals in this condition don't come around often, especially with such low mileage. The odometer reads just 66,000 miles, which is practically nothing for a car this age. And with a clean title, you can rest assured that there's no shady history lurking in this car's past. Now, I know the price tag might seem a bit steep at first glance, but trust me, $10,750 is a steal for a car like this. The seller even says, "You must see this car to believe it." And I couldn't agree more. Pictures can only do so much justice. To truly appreciate this Dodge Royal's beauty and condition, you've got to see it in person. So, if you're in the market for a classic car that's sure to turn heads and start conversations wherever you go, this 1957 Dodge Royal might just be the one for you. Don't let this opportunity pass you by. Go ahead and give the seller a call or shoot them a message. Who knows, you might just end up driving home in your very own piece of automotive history. 3. We're diving into the world of classic American muscle with a 1976 Chevrolet Malibu that's up for grabs on Craigslist. The seller is asking $5,735 or best offer, and let me tell you, this car has got some serious potential. First off, let's talk about the overall condition. The seller claims it's in excellent shape, and from what I can see, they're not too far off the mark. The interior and exterior are clean, which is a big plus for a car that's been around for over 4 decades. However, there are a couple of minor issues to note. There's a crack on the dashboard and some damage on the rear driver's door. But hey, a little TLC and those could be fixed up in no time. Now let's move on to one of the most eye-catching features of this Malibu, the vinyl top. And boy, is it in great condition. It's always a relief to see a classic car with a well-maintained vinyl top, as they can be prone to cracking and peeling over time. This one looks like it's been taken care of, and it adds a nice touch of sophistication to the car's overall appearance. Mechanically, things are looking pretty good too. The seller mentions that everything was working when the car was last taken out for a spin 3 years ago, and get this, they even started it up with a jump a couple of weeks back, and it ran well. That's a great sign for a car that's been sitting for a while. Of course, you'll want to give it a thorough inspection before making any final decisions, but it's a promising start. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, but what about the specs? Well, unfortunately, the seller doesn't provide too many details on that front. We don't know the exact engine size or horsepower, but based on the year and model, we can assume it's likely packing a V8 under the hood. And with an automatic transmission, cruising around town should be a breeze. The title status is clean, which is always a good thing. No one wants to deal with a car that has a sketchy past or legal issues, and while the mileage isn't mentioned, it's important to keep in mind that this is a classic car. It's more about the overall condition and how well it's been maintained rather than the number on the odometer. So, what's the verdict? If you're in the market for a classic American sedan with plenty of style and potential, this 1976 Chevrolet Malibu could be a great choice. The asking price of $5,735 seems fair for a car in this condition, but there's always room for negotiation. And who knows, with a little bit of work and some elbow grease, you could have a real head-turner on your hands. As always, be sure to do your due diligence before making any final decisions. Give the car a thorough inspection, take it for a test drive, and make sure everything checks out. But if all goes well, you might just find yourself cruising down the street in your very own piece of American automotive history. 4. We've got a real gem to talk about. A 1955 Plymouth Savoy that's up for grabs on Craigslist for just $11,500. Now, I know what you might be thinking. A car that old? It must be a rusty old bucket. But hold on tight, because this Savoy is anything but. First off, let's talk about the rarity of this beauty. It's a 2-door model, which is already hard to come by, but the fact that it's a California car is even more impressive. You know what that means. No rust issues or Bondo hiding any nasty surprises. The seller even goes as far as to say it's solid and straight, which is music to any classic car lover's ears. Now let's talk about the condition. The seller rates it as good, and from what I can see, that's a fair assessment. Sure, the paint might have some scratches, but it still shines up nicely. And let's be real, a little patina never hurt anyone, right? It just adds to the character of this vintage ride. Under the hood, you'll find a 6-cylinder engine that fires right up and purrs like a kitten. The seller mentions that the car has had a lot of maintenance done, including rebuilt bushings on the suspension and brakes. That's a big plus in my book. It shows that someone has taken the time to keep this Savoy in tip-top shape. And with a folder full of receipts, you can rest assured that the work has been done properly. When it comes to driving, the seller says this Savoy is ready to hit the road. It shifts through all the gears smoothly, goes down the road straight, and stops just fine. And get this, even the original AM radio still works. How cool is that? Now, I know some of you might be thinking, but what about the interior? Well, the seller does mention that the carpet was old and has been removed, but fear not because they've still got the sill plates. And honestly, with a car this cool, who needs carpet anyway? You could always add your own personal touch later on. One thing that really caught my eye is the potential for customization. The seller suggests that this Savoy would make a nice hot rod with a Hemi or any Chrysler V8. And with a full frame from front to rear and an 8 3/4 rear end, you've got a solid foundation to build upon. The possibilities are endless. The title is clean, which is always a good sign. No one wants to deal with any legal headaches when buying a classic car. And here's a fun little tidbit. The seller is even open to trading for an excavator. Hey, you never know what kind of deals you can make on Craigslist. Overall, if you're in the market for a rare, solid, and well-maintained classic car, this 1955 Plymouth Savoy might just be the one for you. At $11,500, it's a fair price for a piece of automotive history that's ready to hit the road or be transformed into your dream hot rod. So, what are you waiting for? Go ahead and give the seller a call or shoot them a message. Who knows? You might just be the lucky new owner of this incredible Savoy. 5. We've got a real treat for you. A 1978 Cadillac Eldorado that's up for grabs on Craigslist. This beauty is a Biarritz model, and let me tell you, it's a head-turner. First things first, let's talk about the mileage. This Eldorado has only clocked 66,000 miles, which is pretty impressive for a car that's over 4 decades old. The seller mentions that it runs and drives great, so you can expect a smooth ride when you get behind the wheel. Now, I know you're probably wondering about the condition of this classic. The seller states that it's in very good condition for its age, although it's not perfect. But hey, who expects perfection from a car that's been around since the disco era? The important thing is that everything works except for the clock. But who needs a clock when you're cruising down the highway in style, right? Speaking of style, let's talk about the features. This Eldorado comes with a power sunroof, so you can let that fresh air in while you're driving. And when the summer heat gets too much, you can always rely on the cold AC to keep you cool. Plus, with new tires, you can expect a safe and comfortable ride. Under the hood, you'll find an 8-cylinder engine that's ready to give you all the power you need. And with a clean title status, you can have peace of mind knowing that this car is legit. Now let's talk about the price. The seller is asking $9,500 for this Eldorado. While it may seem like a steep price for an older car, you have to remember that this is a classic Cadillac we're talking about. These cars are known for their luxury and style, and they've got a loyal following among collectors and enthusiasts. Overall, if you're in the market for a classic car that's got a lot of character and style, this 1978 Cadillac Eldorado Biarritz is definitely worth checking out. It may not be perfect, but it's got a lot of charm and history behind it. Plus, with only 66,000 miles on the odometer, it's still got plenty of life left in it. So what are you waiting for? Go ahead and give this Eldorado a test drive. You won't be disappointed. 6. We've got a real treat for you. A 1966 Cadillac Coupe de Ville that's currently up for grabs on Craigslist for just $11,000. Now, I know what you're thinking. That's a steal for a classic like this, right? Well, let's take a closer look and see what we've got. First off, let's talk about the condition. The seller says it's in good shape, and from the looks of the photos, I'd have to agree. The body looks straight, and there's no visible rust or damage. The paint is a bit matte, but that's to be expected for a car of this age. The seller does mention that there's some minor rust behind the rear glass, but that's pretty common for GM cars of this era. Under the hood, we've got a nice surprise. A 1,968/69 472 cubic inch Cadillac engine. This is a big upgrade from the stock 429 that these cars came with, and it should provide plenty of power. The seller also mentions that it's got an electronic ignition system and fresh exhaust, so it should run like a top. Another great feature of this car is the front disc brakes. If you've ever driven a classic car with drum brakes, you know how sketchy they can be. The disc brakes on this Caddy should provide much better stopping power and make it a lot easier to drive. Inside, the seats are a bit faded, but the seller says they could be easily refreshed with some black dye. The windows all work, although the left rear might need some attention. The transmission shifts smoothly through all 3 gears, and there are no fluid leaks or drips. Now, I do have to mention a couple of potential downsides. The tires are old and will need to be replaced. and the seller hasn't taken it on any long drives or high-speed runs. The carburetor is also the original Q-Jet, which can be a bit finicky. The seller recommends replacing it with an aftermarket unit if you plan on keeping the car. Overall, though, I think this is a great find for any Cadillac enthusiast. The 1965 and 1966 models are some of the best ever built, and this one has some nice upgrades that make it even better. The price is definitely fair for a running, driving project car like this. Of course, as with any classic car purchase, I always recommend getting a thorough inspection before handing over any cash. But if everything checks out, this could be a great addition to any collection or a fun weekend cruiser. 7. We've got a real treat for you. A 1983 Lincoln Continental Mark VI that's currently up for grabs on Craigslist for $9,500. This full-size body-on-frame V8 RWD personal luxury coupe is a true classic, and the seller says it's in good condition. Let's take a closer look and see what we've got. First off, let's talk about the pros. This Mark VI has been well maintained, with oil changes every 3,000 miles and a smooth shifting AOD transmission. It's been garage kept by both the original owner and the current seller, and has only been used as a Sunday car. The vinyl Landau top is in good condition, and the interior is very clean with supple leather everywhere, except for a slightly hardened passenger seat bottom. The seller is also including a ton of extras, like the original owner's manuals, a Haynes maintenance manual, a cloth car cover, and even your next set of front brake pads and rear brake shoes. Now, let's talk about the cons. The driver's door armrest vinyl is cracked, and the dashboard has some cracks near the speaker ports. The original sound system is a bit crackly, and the AC system needs a recharge. The headliner has been replaced but needs re-gluing in places, and there's a small chip in the paint on the hood. The seller also mentions a slow coolant leak around the intake manifold gasket, which seeps onto the exhaust manifold and burns off. Despite these minor issues, the seller has clearly put a lot of work into this car over the past few years. In 2019, they replaced the radiator, alternator, temp sensor, thermostat, voltage regulator, spark plugs, oil pressure sensor, and trunk support pistons. In 2020, they installed 4 new whitewall tires, new MagnaFlow catalytic converters, did a transmission flush and filter replacement, a cooling system flush, replaced the intake manifold and valve cover gaskets, plug wires, distributor rotor, U-joints, front calipers and pads, and even did a detailed engine bay and interior cleaning. Overall, I think this 1983 Lincoln Continental Mark VI is a great find for any enthusiast of classic American luxury cars. The seller has been upfront about the minor issues, but has also clearly put a lot of love and care into maintaining and upgrading this car. The mileage is relatively low at 77,000, and the price seems fair for a well-maintained classic like this. Of course, as with any used car purchase, I always recommend getting a thorough inspection before handing over any cash. But if everything checks out, this could be a great addition to any collection or a fun weekend cruiser. 8. We've got a 1984 Chevrolet Corvette that's looking for a new home. The seller is asking just $6,000 for this classic sports car, but is it a good deal? Let's take a closer look and find out. First off, let's talk about the good stuff. The seller has put a lot of work into this Corvette recently, including a new water pump, radiator, fan switch, and relay. It's also got brand new tires, shocks all around, and a recent tune-up. The passenger side front caliper is new, and the rest of the brakes have been serviced with new pads and rotors. The paint and interior were redone about a year ago, with new carpet installed at the same time. And to top it all off, there's a brand new Napa Legend battery under the hood. Now, I do have to mention a couple of issues that the seller has disclosed. The passenger side window doesn't roll down, and the driver's seat doesn't adjust backwards. The fuel gauge also has a mind of its own sometimes, going up instead of down. These are definitely things to keep in mind if you're considering this car. But here's the thing. For $6,000, you're getting a lot of car. The C4 Corvette is a true classic, with its sleek, angular styling and powerful V8 engine. This particular car has the automatic transmission, which may not be everyone's cup of tea, but it does make it a bit easier to drive in traffic. The mileage is a bit high at 152,000, but that's not necessarily a deal breaker for a well-maintained Corvette. These cars are known for their durability, and with all the recent work that's been done, this one should have plenty of life left in it. Of course, as with any used car purchase, I always recommend getting a thorough inspection before handing over any cash. Take it to a trusted mechanic who knows Corvettes and have them check everything out. If there are any major issues lurking beneath the surface, it's better to find out now than later. Overall, though, I think this 1984 Corvette is definitely worth considering if you're in the market for a classic sports car on a budget. It's not perfect, but it's got a lot of potential. And with a little bit of TLC, it could be a really fun weekend cruiser or even a daily driver. 9. We've got a real gem for you. A 1979 Lincoln Town Car Continental that's up for sale on Craigslist. This beauty is a real head-turner, and it's got a lot of features that make it stand out from the crowd. First off, let's talk about the condition of this Lincoln. The seller describes it as being in like-new condition, and based on the pictures and description, I'm inclined to believe them. The paint is in great shape, with no bubbles or rust anywhere. The seller even mentions that they recently spent $1,000 on hand polishing and ceramic coating, so you know they've put a lot of love and care into this car. Moving on to the interior, the seller says it's very clean with no stains or rips. That's impressive for a car that's over 40 years old. And get this, everything works. From the AC to the cruise control to the power antenna, this Lincoln is fully loaded and ready to go. Under the hood, you'll find a V8 engine that's paired with an automatic transmission. The seller mentions that it starts, drives, and shifts perfectly with no problems. And with only 58,000 miles on the odometer, this car has a lot of life left in it. One thing to note is that this Lincoln is a factory special without opera windows. That means it's got a unique look that sets it apart from other town cars of the era. Now let's talk about the price. The seller is asking $12,000 for this Lincoln. While that may seem like a lot for an older car, you have to remember that this is a classic luxury vehicle that's in excellent condition. Plus, with all the features and the low mileage, it's really a steal at this price. The seller mentions that the only reason they're selling is because they have no use for it, but they still enjoy driving it. That's a testament to how well this car runs and how much fun it is to drive. Overall, if you're in the market for a classic luxury car that's in excellent condition, this 1979 Lincoln Town Car Continental is definitely worth checking out. With its great paint, clean interior, and fully functioning features, it's a car that's sure to turn heads wherever you go. And with only 58,000 miles on the odometer, it's got plenty of life left in it. So, what are you waiting for? Go ahead and give this Lincoln a test drive. You won't be disappointed. 10. We've got a real treat for you. A 1984 Pontiac Firebird that's up for grabs on Craigslist. This classic American muscle car is sure to turn heads wherever it goes, and it's got a lot of features that make it stand out from the crowd. First off, let's talk about the condition of this Firebird. The seller describes it as being in excellent condition, and based on the description, it's easy to see why. This car has been stored in a climate-controlled garage for most of its life, which has helped to preserve its condition. And even though it's been driven daily for the past 6 months, the seller has kept up with regular maintenance to ensure that it stays in top shape. One of the standout features of this Firebird is the factory T-tops. These removable roof panels let you enjoy the open air while you're driving, and they're a classic feature of the Firebird. Plus, with a clean title and only 3 owners in its history, you can have peace of mind knowing that this car has been well cared for over the years. Under the hood, you'll find a 305 V8 engine that's paired with a 5-speed manual transmission. This combination provides plenty of power and control, making it a blast to drive. And with only 90,000 miles on the odometer, this Firebird has a lot of life left in it. Now, the seller does mention that there are some minor cosmetic imperfections here and there, which is to be expected for a car that's almost 40 years old. But overall, the car is in great condition for its age, and these imperfections don't detract from its overall appeal. The seller also mentions that the car comes with its original owner's manual and all the spare parts they have. This is a great bonus, as it shows that the seller has taken good care of the car and wants to pass on as much information as possible to the next owner. Now, let's talk about the price. The seller is asking $13,000 for this Firebird. While that may seem like a lot for an older car, you have to remember that this is a classic American muscle car that's in excellent condition. Plus, with its low mileage and well-maintained history, It's a car that's sure to hold its value over time. Overall, if you're in the market for a classic Firebird that's in excellent condition, this 1984 model is definitely worth checking out. With its factory T-tops, clean title, and strong mechanical condition, it's a car that's sure to provide years of driving enjoyment. And with its original owner's manual and spare parts included, you can have peace of mind knowing that you're getting a car that's been well cared for over the years. So what are you waiting for? Go ahead and give this Firebird a test drive. You won't be disappointed. 11. I've got a real treat for you. A 1971 Mercury Cyclone GT that's up for grabs on Craigslist for just $5,000. This classic muscle car is a true gem, and I can't wait to tell you all about it. First off, let's talk about the specs. This Cyclone GT is powered by a beastly 429 cubic inch V8 engine, paired with a smooth shifting automatic transmission. It's a rear-wheel drive machine that runs on good old-fashioned gasoline, and it's got just 113,500 miles on the odometer. The exterior is painted in a stunning green hue, and the title is clean as a whistle. Now, I've got to be honest with you, this car isn't in perfect condition. The seller mentions that there's some rust in the rear quarters and floor, as well as some body damage on the driver's side. But hey, that's just part of the charm of owning a classic car, right? Plus, the seller is throwing in new front floor pans and carpet to sweeten the deal. Despite the imperfections, this Cyclone GT is still a force to be reckoned with on the road. The seller notes that it's mostly original with new brakes, exhaust, front suspension, and springs. And even though the engine and transmission aren't numbers matching, they're period correct and would have been available in this car when it was new. But the real kicker? This car runs, drives, and stops like a dream. The seller even goes so far as to say it's a blast to drive. And I believe it. There's nothing quite like the feeling of getting behind the wheel of a classic muscle car and letting that V8 engine roar. Now, I know what you might be thinking. If this car is so great, why is the seller letting it go? Well, it turns out they've just got too much stuff and need to make some room. Their loss is your gain, though. This Cyclone GT is a rare find and won't last long at this price point. 12. I've been scouring Craigslist for the best deals on classic cars, and I think I've hit the jackpot with this 1983 Cadillac sedan DeVille. This beauty is up for sale for just $5,800, and let me tell you, it's worth every penny. First things first, let's talk about the specs. This DeVille is powered by a smooth-running engine that purrs like a kitten. It's paired with an automatic transmission that shifts so smoothly you'll barely even notice it. And with rear-wheel drive and regular gasoline, this car is a breeze to drive and maintain. Now, I know what you might be thinking. 57,000 miles? That's nothing for a classic car. Well, hold your horses, because the seller does note that the odometer has rolled over, but don't let that scare you off. This car has been so well taken care of, you'd never even know it had that many miles on it. And can we talk about the color? This DeVille is painted in a stunning shade of blue that's sure to make you stand out from the crowd. It's the kind of color that just screams classic luxury, and I am here for it. But enough about the looks. Let's talk about the condition. The seller describes this car as being in good shape, and from what I can see in the photos, I'd have to agree. Everything is original, from the plush leather seats to the wood grain accents on the dashboard. And the seller even notes that the car has been well taken care of over the years, so you know you're getting a quality vehicle. But the real kicker? The way this car drives. The seller says it's like driving a couch, and I believe it. Cadillacs are known for their smooth, comfortable ride, and this DeVille is no exception. You'll feel like you're floating down the road in the lap of luxury. Of course, as with any classic car, there may be some minor imperfections or signs of wear and tear. But that's just part of the charm, right? This car has been around for almost 40 years, and it's still going strong. That's a testament to the quality and craftsmanship that went into making it. And can we talk about the price again? $5,800 for a classic Cadillac in this condition is an absolute steal. You'd be hard-pressed to find another car like this for such a reasonable price. So, if you're in the market for a vintage ride that's sure to turn heads and make you feel like $1 million, this DeVille is the one for you. But don't just take my word for it. Go check out the listing for yourself. Give the seller a call or shoot them a text for more info, and be sure to let them know you saw this video. And if you end up taking this beauty home, be sure to send me a picture. I'd love to see it out on the road. 13. I've got a real project car for you. A 1967 Buick Skylark that's up for grabs on Craigslist for just $4,000. This classic coupe is a true diamond in the rough, and I can't wait to tell you all about it. First off, let's talk about the specs. This Skylark is powered by a beefy 8-cylinder engine, paired with an automatic transmission that's ready to kick into high gear. It's a rear-wheel drive machine that runs on regular gasoline, and it's got just 70,000 miles on the odometer. The exterior is painted in a classic green hue, and the title is clean as a whistle. Now I've got to be honest with you, this car isn't in perfect condition. The seller notes that it's been sitting for a couple of years and needs some work to get it back on the road. But hey, that's just part of the fun of owning a project car, right? The seller even mentions that this Skylark was slated for a 396 engine swap, which could make it a real beast on the road. Despite the need for some TLC, this Skylark has a lot of potential. The seller describes it as being original and in decent shape overall. The engine even started up a few months ago, so you know it's got some life left in it, and with a clean title, you won't have to worry about any pesky paperwork or legal issues. Of course, as with any project car, there are some areas that will need attention. The seller mentions that the interior requires repair, so you'll want to budget for some new upholstery and maybe a fresh coat of paint. But hey, that's all part of the fun of bringing a classic car back to life. And let's not forget about the price. At just $4,000, this Buick Skylark is an absolute steal. You'd be hard-pressed to find another classic coupe with this much potential for such a low price. Plus, the seller's reason for letting it go is a real heartstring tugger. They've got a family issue to deal with and simply don't have the time to give this car the love it deserves. So if you're in the market for a classic project car that's sure to turn heads once it's fixed up, this 1967 Buick Skylark might just be the one for you. It's got a solid foundation, a clean title, and a price that can't be beat. Plus, think of the satisfaction you'll feel when you finally get it back on the road and take it for that first spin. 14. I've got a real treat for you. A 1965 Ford Mustang that's up for grabs on Craigslist for $13,500. This classic pony car is a true icon, and I can't wait to tell you all about it. First off, let's talk about the specs. This Mustang is powered by a 289 V8 engine that's sure to get your heart racing. It's paired with an automatic transmission so you can sit back and enjoy the ride. And with a clean title, you won't have to worry about any pesky paperwork or legal issues. Now, I've got to be honest with you. This car isn't in perfect condition. The seller notes that it needs some brake and steering work to be a driver, and the odometer is broken, so we don't know exactly how many miles it has on it. But hey, that's just part of the charm of owning a classic car, right? Despite the need for some TLC, this Mustang has a lot of potential. The seller describes it as being in decent condition overall, and they even mention that it runs well. Plus, with just a little bit of work, this car could be an absolute stunner on the road. And let's talk about the history of this car for a moment. The seller mentions that it was in storage for 6 years before they got it from an estate sale. That means this Mustang has been sitting pretty, just waiting for the right person to come along and give it the love it deserves. Of course, as with any classic car, there are some areas that will need attention. The seller mentions that it needs brake and steering work, so you'll want to budget for some repairs. But hey, that's all part of the fun of owning a piece of automotive history. And let's not forget about the price. At $13,500, this Mustang is a bit of an investment. But when you consider the potential value of a fully restored 1965 Mustang, it's actually a pretty good deal. Plus, think of the satisfaction you'll feel when you finally get it back on the road and take it for that first spin. So, if you're in the market for a classic pony car with a ton of potential, this 1965 Ford Mustang might just be the one for you. It's got a solid foundation, a clean title, and a history that's just begging to be uncovered. Plus, with a little bit of elbow grease and some TLC, this car could be an absolute showstopper. If you're interested, don't hesitate to reach out to the seller for more info. And be sure to let them know you saw this video. Maybe it'll help you negotiate a better price. 15. I've got an absolute gem for you. A 1964 Ford Thunderbird that's up for grabs on Craigslist for just $13,950. This classic beauty is a true piece of Americana, and I can't wait to tell you all about it. First off, let's talk about the specs. This T-Bird is powered by a beefy 8-cylinder engine that's sure to get your heart racing. It's paired with an automatic transmission so you can sit back and enjoy the ride. And with rear-wheel drive and regular gasoline, this car is a breeze to drive and maintain. But let's talk about the real showstopper here, the color. This Thunderbird is painted in a stunning shade of brown with gold metal flake that's sure to turn heads wherever you go. It's the kind of color that just screams vintage luxury. And I am here for it. And the best part? This car is almost entirely stock aside from a new aluminum radiator made right here in the USA. That means you're getting a true piece of automotive history, without any questionable modifications or updates. But don't just take my word for it. The seller has put some serious work into this car. They've added new tires and made sure everything is in top shape. And with just 47,345 miles on the odometer, this T-Bird has plenty of life left in it. Inside, the car is just as impressive. The seller notes that the interior is all original and in extremely good shape for its age. There are no tears or rips in the upholstery, and everything looks just as it did when this car rolled off the assembly line back in 1964. But the real kicker, this car is an investment. The seller notes that you don't really have to do anything to it, but if you want to really cherry it out, you have that option. And with the way the market is going, a classic car like this is a great hedge against inflation. Of course, as with any classic car, there may be some minor imperfections or signs of wear and tear. But that's just part of the charm, right? This car has been around for almost 60 years, and it's still going strong. That's a testament to the quality and craftsmanship that went into making it. And let's talk about the price again. $13,950 or best offer. For a car of this caliber, that's an absolute steal. The seller is even open to trades, so if you've got something cool to offer up, don't be afraid to reach out. But don't just take my word for it. Go check out the listing for yourself. Give the seller a call and schedule a time to come out and see this fantastic specimen of Americana in person. And if you end up taking this beauty home, be sure to send me a picture. I'd love to see it out on the road. 16. We've got a real treat for you. A 1953 Studebaker Commander Starliner that's up for grabs on Craigslist. This beauty is priced at $12,000, and let me tell you, it's a steal for a piece of automotive history like this. Now, I know what you might be thinking. A car that's almost 70 years old must be in pretty rough shape, right? Well, not this one. The seller says it's in good condition, and from what I can see in the photos, it looks like it's been well taken care of over the years. Under the hood, you'll find the original 232 V8 engine, which is still running strong. The seller mentions that it's mechanically sound and would make a great daily driver. They've even gone ahead and replaced the brake shoes, master cylinder, and rear wheel bearings. So you know it's ready to hit the road. The interior might be a little tired, as the seller admits, but that's to be expected with a car of this age. The chrome is also described as fair, so it might need a little TLC to get it shining like new again. Now, I do have to mention that there is some rust along the passenger side rocker just below the door. But hey, a little rust never hurt anyone, right? It just adds to the character of this classic ride. The best part? The seller has a clean title in their name, and the car comes with current registration. So you won't have to worry about any paperwork hassles when you go to make this beauty your own. Overall, this 1953 Studebaker Commander Starliner is a rare find and a great opportunity for any classic car lover. It might need a little work here and there, but that's all part of the fun of owning a piece of automotive history. And at $12,000, it's a price that's hard to beat. 17. We're taking a closer look at a 1966 Chevrolet El Camino that's up for sale on Craigslist. This classic ride is priced at $12,000. And while it may not be in perfect condition, it's still a solid choice for anyone looking for a reliable daily driver with a bit of character. Now, I want to be completely honest with you guys. The seller does mention that this El Camino has a salvage title from the previous owner. It was hit in the right rear quarter panel at some point in its life, but don't let that scare you away just yet. The seller notes that the car has been professionally repaired, and there's no damage to the frame or structural support areas. Under the hood, you'll find the original engine, which is always a plus in my book. The seller doesn't specify which engine it is, but given that it's a 66 El Camino, it's likely either a 283 or 327 cubic inch V8. The ad also mentions that the car runs fine and is reliable, so you can feel confident taking it out on the road. Now let's talk about the work that's been done to this El Camino. The seller says they have around $8K in parts and labor invested in making it roadworthy and a solid daily driver. That's a pretty significant chunk of change, and it shows that they've put a lot of effort into getting this car back in shape. As for the cosmetic condition, the seller rates it as fair, which is to be expected for a car that's over 50 years old. The paint color is listed as blue, but there are no photos included in the ad, so it's hard to say exactly what shade it is or how it looks in person. One thing to note is that the odometer is broken, so it's unclear exactly how many miles are on this El Camino. The ad lists the mileage as 88,000, but that could be way off depending on how long the odometer has been out of commission. Overall, this 1966 Chevrolet El Camino is a solid choice for anyone looking for a classic ride with a bit of character. It may not be perfect, but it's been professionally repaired and has had a lot of work done to make it a reliable daily driver. Plus, the seller is willing to trade for a diesel 4x4 full-size truck, so if that's more your speed, it's definitely worth considering. 18. We've got a real treat for you. A stunning 1985 Pontiac Fiero GT that's up for grabs on Craigslist. This beauty is priced at $14,500, and let me tell you, it's worth every penny. First off, can we just take a moment to appreciate the low mileage on this classic sports car? With only 20,500 original miles on the odometer, this Fiero GT is practically a time capsule. The seller mentions that they purchased the car from the original owner back in 2008 with just 18,000 miles on it. And since then, it's been driven sparingly for short rides and car shows. Now let's talk about the condition of this Fiero GT. The seller rates it as excellent, and based on the description, it's easy to see why. The interior is described as being like new with no tears or rips anywhere. The car also comes equipped with a host of options, including an automatic transmission, AC, with a new compressor installed last summer, power windows and locks, a tilt steering wheel, cruise control, and an AM/FM cassette player. Under the hood, you'll find a 6-cylinder engine that's sure to provide plenty of power for this lightweight sports car. The seller notes that the car drives and handles perfectly, with everything in perfect working order. As for the exterior, the seller does mention that the paint isn't 100% perfect. The hood was repainted with matching Fiero red paint about 6 years ago due to some clear coat peeling, but it's not a major issue. There are also a couple of small scratches at the very bottom of the car, likely from servicing, but they are hardly noticeable. The rear spoiler has some fading, but overall it's still in very nice condition. One of the coolest things about this Fiero GT is that it comes with a bunch of original documentation, including the dealer window sticker, owner's manuals, and original sales documents. It's always nice to have that kind of provenance with a classic car like this. The seller does note that the car is being sold without any warranty and all inspections must be done prior to the sale. That's pretty standard for a car of this age, but it's still something to keep in mind. Overall, this 1985 Pontiac Fiero GT is a fantastic find for anyone looking for a fun, collectible sports car. With its low mileage, excellent condition, and original documentation, it's sure to turn heads wherever it goes. And at $14,500, it's priced fairly for a car of this caliber. At 19, we've got a real gem for you, a 1984 Lincoln Town car that's up for sale on Craigslist. This classic luxury sedan is priced at $9,000, and based on the seller's description, it sounds like it's in excellent condition. Now, I know what you might be thinking. A car that's almost 40 years old with only 60,000 miles on the odometer? That seems too good to be true, right? Well, the seller does mention that the odometer has rolled over, so it's likely that this town car has actually traveled 160,000 miles. But don't let that deter you. These cars were built to last. And with proper maintenance, they can easily go well beyond that mileage. The seller describes this town car as being very nice and totally road-ready, which is always a good sign. They also mention that it's been garage kept and covered, so you can expect the exterior to be in great shape. The paint color is listed as red, and while there are no photos included in the ad, I'm sure it looks stunning in person. Under the hood, you'll find a powerful 8-cylinder engine that's sure to provide a smooth and comfortable ride. The transmission is automatic, which is pretty standard for a luxury car like this. And with a rear-wheel drive, you can expect some decent performance and handling as well. Now, I do want to be completely honest with you guys. the seller doesn't provide a ton of details about the car's history or any recent maintenance that's been done. That's not necessarily a red flag, but it's definitely something to keep in mind if you're seriously considering this town car. I always recommend getting a thorough inspection done by a trusted mechanic before making any big purchases, just to be safe. Overall, this 1984 Lincoln Town Car seems like a great find for anyone in the market for a classic luxury sedan. With its low, albeit rolled-over mileage, excellent condition, and garage-kept history, it's sure to provide many more years of comfortable and stylish driving. And at $9,000, it's priced fairly for a car of this caliber. Of course, as with any used car purchase, there are always some risks involved. But if you do your due diligence and have the car thoroughly inspected, I think this town car could be a really solid investment. Just imagine cruising down the highway in this classic beauty. It's sure to turn heads wherever you go. 20. We've got a real blast from the past for you. A 1959 Edsel Ranger that's up for grabs on Craigslist. This classic piece of American automotive history is priced at just $7,900. And while the seller doesn't provide a ton of details, there's still plenty to get excited about. First off, let's talk about the Edsel brand itself. For those who may not be familiar, Edsel was a short-lived marque produced by Ford Motor Company from 1958 to 1960. Despite its brief existence, the Edsel has become a bit of a cult classic among car collectors and enthusiasts, thanks to its unique styling and somewhat infamous reputation. Now, onto this particular 1959 Edsel Ranger. The seller mentions that it's equipped with an inline 6-cylinder engine and a 3-speed manual transmission, which is a pretty standard setup for a car of this era. They also note that the odometer reads 100,000 miles, which is not surprising for a vehicle that's over 60 years old. Unfortunately, the seller doesn't provide any information about the overall condition of the car, which is a bit of a red flag. Without seeing photos or getting more details, it's hard to say whether this Edsel is a well-preserved gem or a rusty bucket of bolts. As always, I recommend proceeding with caution and getting a thorough inspection done by a trusted mechanic before making any big purchases. That being said, if this Edsel Ranger is in decent shape, it could be a really cool project car or a fun addition to any classic car collection. The inline 6-cylinder engine and manual transmission make it a bit of a rarity, and the unique styling is sure to turn heads wherever it goes. One thing to keep in mind is that parts and maintenance for a car like this can be a bit tricky, given its age and relative obscurity. You'll want to make sure you have access to a good mechanic who's familiar with classic cars, and be prepared to hunt down some hard-to-find parts if necessary. Overall, this 1959 Edsel Ranger is an intriguing find for anyone who loves classic American cars. With its unique styling, inline 6-cylinder engine, and manual transmission, it's got a lot of potential for the right buyer. Just be sure to do your due diligence and get a thorough inspection before taking the plunge. And hey, even if it turns out to be a bit of a project, that's half the fun of owning a classic car like this. Just imagine the satisfaction of bringing this piece of automotive history back to life and hitting the open road in style. It's the stuff car enthusiasts' dreams are made of.